One game in the books, and there's already pressure for Virginia Tech football.
After falling short to the Gamecocks in Atlanta, the Hokies have another SEC opponent on the schedule.
It's Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech on the menu again, and both sides are running it back with their QB.
We have everything you need ahead of the Hokies home opener on this edition of the 3304 Sports Kickoff Show.
Hello and welcome from the Center for the Arts in Blacksburg, Virginia. I'm Klaus, joined by Landon Weaver, and you can just feel college football is in the air.
It's awesome, right? I mean, last weekend was a great weekend for college football. So many ranked matchups, so many teams pulling the upset, and now we get our very own home opener here in the beautiful Blacksburg, Virginia.
Right, and Blacksburg is buzzing, school's back and such, and I don't know about you, I at least had a couple syllabus days, but I'll tell you what, Virginia Tech did not have a syllabus day at all. Week one, they already had a big test against South Carolina.
Yeah, silly week is over. It's time to get serious as they played South Carolina, and really, let's take a look at those highlights and see how this Sunday matinee unfolded in Atlanta. The Gamecocks got on the board early on Lenore Steller's QB draw all the way to the end zone. 7-0 Gamecocks.
That's why he's ranked so high. He has the speed for sure.
And then it was Emmett Laws policing the end zone, the opponent's end zone, and getting the safety. Tech on the board defensively.
Points from defense usually helps you out in a football game.
It was John Love from 56. Just before halftime, cut the lead to 2. Hokies have some momentum going into the second half.
He's been impressive for the Hokies. See if he keeps it going this season.
And then the fateful punt return for South Carolina. Look at this one from his own 20-yard line. Ring, ring, a house call for South Carolina, and it would make it 17-8. Look at this. He just weaves his way in and out through defenders, breaking tackles all the way to the pay dirt.
There's not much more of a momentum shifter in football than a special teams touchdown, and that's what the Gamecocks had there.
And then look at this track speed from Nick Harbor, a 10-10 100-meter sprinter in high school, all the way to the end zone. The nail in the coffin for South Carolina.
That's a burner right there, and Sellers finds his man, and that helps South Carolina extend the lead.
A last-ditch effort for the Hokies. Drones out of the pocket, throws deep, misses his man, and into the hands of a Gamecock defender. That's going to do it for Virginia Tech. They would go on to lose 24-11 here in Atlanta. And look at Shane Beamer coaching against the team that his dad sought for 20-plus years. A crazy day for him, and he came out on top over his alma mater. Yeah, what a game that was. And I think what really sticks out in terms of the overall takeaways, Virginia Tech won the time of possession battle. They forced the 4 shortest drives of the game, all on South Carolina. And they also technically outgained the Gamecocks, but it just wasn't quite enough. Yeah, for me, honestly, I came out a glass half full on the Virginia Tech, and their defense looked phenomenal. The offense just wasn't clicking. You saw a lot of missed throws over the open field, and then all of a sudden, you're down 13, but you had a 2-point game going into the fourth quarter. Yeah, in the end, you got to take advantage of those opportunities, and as we shift to what this weekend is for Virginia Tech, it's a familiar foe for the Hokies. But if you're struggling to recall the last matchup between the Hokies and the Commodores after a fair share of holidays, a couple of season changes, and who knows how many fashion trends that have come and gone, don't worry. Thomas Howlett can jog your memory of an instant classic.
Thanks, Riley. Now, for those of you watching at home, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and let's take a trip to this time last season. A year ago, the Virginia Tech Hokies were in a position to take the college football world by storm. The Hokies had returned 22 starters from the previous season, and with Kyron Drones looking to start his first full year, many talking heads from all across the country were picking the Hokies to make a surprise run at the ACC title. That was until on August 31st, when Week 1 came around, Virginia Tech took a trip to Nashville to take on the Vanderbilt Commodores. Now, what was slated to be a comfortable Hokie victory quickly turned sideways. Vanderbilt grinded down the field on an 11-play, 50-yard drive to take an early 3-0 lead after a Brock Taylor field goal. Then, on their first drive, Kyron Drones was picked off by Glenn Seabrooks II, setting up the Commodores deep in Virginia Tech territory, where just 7 plays later, Vandy found pay dirt. After a Hokie punt, the Commodores once more drove down the field, this time with Cedric Alexander punching it in for 6. John Love added on 3 for the Hokies as they entered the half trailing 17-3. Now, it looked bleak for the Hokies, but Tech responded on the opening drive of the second half. Bayshaw Tootin scampered in for a 24-yard touchdown run. Vanderbilt and Virginia Tech added field goals in the third, and entering the fourth, the score was 20-13 in favor of the Doors. After a Vandy punt early in the fourth, the Hokies went 76 yards down the field, capping off the drive with a pitch and catch between Tootin and Drones to tie the game. The Commodores were once again forced to punt, but this time pinned Virginia Tech at their own 3-yard line. But Drones and company worked their way out of the hole, and with the gift of a coverage bust, Drones connected with Ali Jennings for the Hokies to claim their first lead of the game, 27-20. With all that momentum, it looked like the Commodores ran out of gas, but this is where the legend of Diego Pavia was born. Pavia took the reins of his team and led them down the field. Pavia sprayed the ball all over the gridiron and eventually tied the game with this touchdown pass. Neither team was able to score by the end of regulation, although Vanderbilt had a chance to walk it off, but came up empty on a Brock Taylor missed field goal. So, we headed to overtime. The Commodores started with the ball, and in just 4 plays, they found the end zone by way of the legs of Diego Pavia. The Hokies had their backs against the wall, which didn't get any easier when Kyron Drones left on a crucial 3rd down after coming up injured the previous play. Colin Schlee, the backup signal caller, took a sack and on 4th down went for the equalizer. But Vanderbilt anchored down as Daquan Felton couldn't hang on to the ball in the back of the end zone. Now, at the time, this was an awful loss for the Hokies, but come to find out, this was a very good Vanderbilt team that several weeks later knocked off Alabama. Now, not only that, but the Commodores were competitive with many of the top SEC programs like Missouri, Texas, and LSU. With last year's dramatic finish in Nashville, with Pavia still at the helm, Saturday's storylines are as hot as a black leather seat on a warm summer day. Back to you, Riley.
Thanks, Thomas. Well, Landon, let's try to talk about this question. Who are the Vanderbilt Commodores? Well, they're coming off of a strong 2024 season for them as they had a 6-6 regular season, including a win over top-ranked Alabama. They did lose the last 3 of the regular season, but then had a bowl game win. So in the 5th year for Clark Lee as the head man for the Commodores, the expectations are a little bit higher.
Yeah, it was their best season to date under the Clark Lee regime, and you know that bowl game kind of goes under the radar, but they beat a really good Georgia Tech team, a guy that, and Hayden's King at the helm for the Yellow Jackets, they were able to overcome them, and now they're heading into this season kind of like Virginia Tech was last season. A lot riding, a lot of returners, Eli Stowers and Diego Pavia. You got to wonder what they're going to do, and they already got off to a better start than the Hokies did, winning their season opener. Now we're here again, but the tables have certainly turned.
Exactly. You talk about week 1 for Vanderbilt, a 45-3 win over Charleston Southern. Nearly 500 yards of offense. The defense had a pair of takeaways as well, and you mentioned it, Eli Stowers at that tight end spot really could be an impact in this game.
Yeah, when they're running that read option and, you know, Eli Stowers is able to just kind of scurry out to the middle of the field. Pavia loves that little toss over to him, and then you've got 30 yards of running room. It's going to be hard for the Hokies to combat it, but now they have film on him. They'll be able to go into it a little more prepared than last year.
Yeah, no doubt. That's going to be something they have to try to take care of this week.
Different conferences, different play styles, but these 2 quarterbacks have something in common. That has become rare in the landscape of college football today. They stayed. For more on Saturday's Field Generals, here's Pierce McKnight.
4 years of the crazy transfer portal palooza, and everyone says that the NCAA hasn't figured it out yet. With the NIL becoming a big factor in why players transfer, that's not why all players enter the portal. This week, there is a clash of 2 quarterbacks who have used the transfer portal to change the direction of their careers. Kyron Drones was a 4-star recruit with multiple offers from notable schools throughout the Power 4 conferences. The dual-threat QB stayed in his home state where he played for the Baylor Bears. He redshirted his freshman year and was the backup in 2022, where he only played 5 games with very limited playing time. He decided to transfer and ended up at Virginia Tech. He knew that they were rebuilding, but he wanted to be a part of the rebuild. After 2 games of being the backup, Drones won the starting job and has been the starter ever since for Virginia Tech. And the 2024 season was filled of struggles and injuries that led to a 6-7 season. Drones showed a lot of potential last week in Atlanta and hopes to lead the Hokies to a third straight bowl game with him under center. Now, let's transfer to the other side. Diego Pavia had a completely different sequence in his college career. Diego Pavia started his college career at the New Mexico Military Institute, where he led them to an NJCAA national championship as a freshman. That led to him taking his talents to New Mexico State for 2 seasons, where he struggled a lot early on, throwing 3 interceptions in his first game. Pavia helped the Aggies win 4 of the last 5 games of the season, along with a quick lane bowl victory. His second season, he balled out, finishing at 10-5 at New Mexico State. After that, it was time for a bigger and better role. Pavia helped change everyone's view of Vandy football. He started with an overtime victory against Virginia Tech. Then a few weeks later, he beat the #1 team in the nation, Alabama. That was Vanderbilt's first win over a top 5 team in program history. To say the least, Diego Pavia was a household name from then on. They finished with the season 7-6 with the first winning record since 2013 when James Franklin was the head coach. These quarterbacks played once last season in an overtime thriller. Now it's time for a rematch, but this time, Drones gets home field advantage. #1 and #2 used the portal to get where they are now. Whether it was Drones stuck in a bad culture at Baylor or Pavia, who was a 0-star recruit who just needed a chance. The transfer portal isn't all bad. For these players, it wasn't about the money, even though the money was a pretty nice addition. This Saturday at 7:30 will be a highly anticipated rematch, Pavia versus Drones Part 2. Make sure you tune in. Back to you guys.
Now, Riley, let's switch from Nashville over to Blacksburg. The Hokies, what do they have to do going into the Vanderbilt game this weekend?
Well, we just heard about the quarterbacks returning, which is important there, but I want to talk about the defense for Virginia Tech. After facing a mobile quarterback in Lenore Sellers last week, they now take on Diego Pavia. And to me, a key piece that was even talked about by Brent Pry this week is the importance of the defensive line. They have a strong second unit, whether you talked in the highlight package with Emmett Laws or other players such as Elijah Fall, who can just provide a spark in that second unit. They're going to need a big day from the boys up front to try to stop a mobile quarterback in Diego Pavia.
Yeah, and they're going to have to be complemented by the offense. We saw a lot of miscues on the offensive end, and Drones only throwing for 158 yards, but there was potential that he could have had north of 250 if some throws and catches were made. But we saw plays from Donovan Green, Aiden Green, Cam Selden, and Tate Heath, all making plays and making wild SportsCenter top 10 catches, honestly. So if that's all clicking on the offensive end, I think the Hokies will give the Vanderbilt Commodores a lot of problems.
Yeah, Drones, especially in enemy territory, is going to have to try to pick it up a little bit and provide an impact there. Well, now we've laid out a little bit of what this game is going to look like and what they've done lately, but what are the true essentials to victory on Saturday? Thomas Hughes has the big picture drawn for what can't be missing in the upcoming contest.
Thanks, Riley. It's time for everyone's new favorite series, What's Huge with Hughes. So, Virginia Tech dropped its opener to South Carolina at Atlanta, and now the Hokies return home to Lane Stadium for a primetime matchup against Vanderbilt. Virginia Tech sits at 0-1, while Vanderbilt sits at 1-0. Both understand how crucial this game could be for their seasons. So, let's get into it. Here's 3 huge keys that will determine how Saturday's showdown against the Commodores plays out for Virginia Tech. My huge key number 1 is containing Vanderbilt signal caller Diego Pavia. If you watched the Hokies game against Vanderbilt last year, you already know the name. Pavia gave the Hokies fits, and his mobility and ability to improvise ultimately sealed the Commodores' victory. Fast forward to this year, and Pavia is back for what's likely to be his final season. Brent Pry stated that Pavia is one of the country's best signal callers in his weekly press conference on Tuesday, and against Charleston Southern in Week 1, Pavia looked poised and comfortable, picking apart the defense and spreading the ball around. For the Hokies, the challenge is twofold. First, they must limit Pavia's ability to extend plays outside the pocket. When Pavia breaks contain, you can either find his tight end Eli Stowers or take off for a scramble. Second, the defense has to remain disciplined on third down. Last week against South Carolina, Virginia Tech allowed Lenore Sellers to convert in crucial moments for big chunk plays. And Pavia has that same knack for punishing defenses that overcommit. If the Hokies keep Pavia bottled up, then they've got a fighting chance Saturday. If not, it could be deja vu all over again. Huge key number 2 is offensive consistency from quarterback Kyron Drones. Drones didn't play his sharpest game against South Carolina. He threw for 221 yards, but his completion percentage dipped under 43%, and he tossed 2 interceptions, including one on a critical 4th down late in the 4th quarter. It wasn't all on him, however. The offensive line struggled mightily when South Carolina brought pressure. According to Pro Football Focus, drones posted a 90.3 grade from a clean pocket, but only a 31.9 grade when pressured. This week against Vanderbilt, it's about finding rhythm early. If the Hokies can keep him upright, establish some timing with receivers Aiden and Donovan Green, and sprinkle in some quarterback-designed runs to build confidence, drones can bounce back in a big way. Tech's offense doesn't need perfection Saturday night, but it does need steadiness. A turnover-like game and more dialed-in game from drones will go a long way towards flipping the result from last year. My huge key number 3, discipline and execution. The little things matter, and Brent Pry has been hammering that message all week. Against South Carolina, Virginia Tech had moments where it could have swung momentum, only to be undone by missed blocks or dropped passes. 2 examples stand out. First, Aiden Green's 28-yard reception that was wiped away by a chop block penalty. Second, Donovan Green's 15-yard unnecessary roughness penalty that, combined with the sack on drones, pushed the defense to 2nd and 32 and stunted the drive before it ever truly got underway. Plays like that don't just stall drives, they sap energy from the sideline and give the opponent free momentum. Pry said it best himself. The Hokies have to double down on discipline and accountability. That means finishing catches, making the right reads, and avoiding costly mistakes that turn manageable drives into punts. The Hokies don't need to reinvent themselves this week, but just need to clean things up and execute. And this game isn't just about avoiding an 0-2 start. For Virginia Tech, it's about flipping the narrative that has plagued them for nearly a decade. A win would end an 8-year drought against non-conference Power 4 opponents, and it would mark their first home win over such a foe since 2009, when Tyrod Taylor was under center. That's the opportunity Saturday brings. Keep Pavia contained, find offensive consistency with drones, and play disciplined football. If Virginia Tech does all 3, it should walk out of Lane Stadium with its first win of 2025. That's what's huge with Hughes. Back up to Klaus in the house.
Great work, Thomas. So that's a little bit about that game. But there's a lot of different college football contests taking over this weekend and in the past. We're 1 week through the season, and Landon, there's already been a lot of big games. I want to give you some week 1 overreactions, question mark?
Yeah.
Are they truly overreactions based on what we saw in week 1?
Let's do it.
So let's take a national scale. First of all, Arch Manning is not the guy for the Longhorns.
Now, Riley, if they had played Miami of Ohio, then maybe we could be talking about him not being the guy for the Longhorns. But they did play Ohio State, the new #1 team in the country. I don't think this is an overreaction. I think Arch will be just fine down there in Texas.
There we go. Well, now another team from the South, Alabama, after falling to Florida State, they will miss the college football playoff.
Yeah, I saw a clip, Cam Newton talking about coaching in the SEC and how it's different than anywhere else. After seeing that game against Florida State, I don't think Kalen DeBoer is really up to the task to be in the SEC. He was great at Washington, don't get me wrong, but the SEC is a totally different beast. And if your coach is not up to task, then it's really hard for the team to follow suit.
So you're buying that one. And now let's talk about the Miami Hurricanes taking down a top opponent in Notre Dame. Miami's the team to beat in the ACC.
See, I'm going to hold you on that one because there's just so many teams in the ACC that can really make a run for it. You got Clemson, Georgia Tech, Louisville, Florida State, and then, of course, Miami. But it's going to take a couple more weeks to really see who the top dogs are and who's going to chicken out.
And lastly, after a struggle fest in the first game of the Chapel Bill era in North Carolina for the Tar Heels, after a struggle performance against TCU, the Tar Heels won't make a bowl game.
Yeah, I'm with you on this one. It's hard to disappoint the GOAT, and he was in attendance, and he certainly was disappointed with that performance. A 48-14 loss in your home opener coming from the pros, which is arguably harder. Now you're working with younger players, and you have all that experience, and it built up to a 34-point loss. Yeah, I don't think it's going to be great for the Tar Heels, but of course it is only the first season. Belichick has 70 new players coming in, so I think it will take him some time. I think the name kind of gave people a balloon idea that he was just going to take over college football. So I think their ceiling is maybe 6-6, 5-7 right there. I don't think they'll be horrible, but they won't make a bowl game.
Well, 1 week in, we already have a lot of reactions and a lot to look forward to throughout the rest of the season.
Indeed, we do. And thank you all for watching this week's 3304 Sports Kickoff Show. For our reporters, Thomas Hallett, Pierce McKnight, and Thomas Hughes, and our excellent production crew behind the scenes, and my co-host, Riley Klaus, I'm Landon Weaver saying so long and see you next week.